Hey, so I heard a diplomat the other day talk about how the United States is different from, or the West is different from the so-called communist economies of the East because of a more consumer-based economy. In other words, you have a state-driven investment model in these so-called communist countries, as opposed to a more balanced consumer-based or consumer-driven consumption model. Let me tell you why that's not true. For the most part, post 9/11 and even before that, the United States has actually been a war-based economy. Think about, the fact that number one, demographically, the United States is having major problems, and all the Western countries are having major problems in terms of achieving a replacement fertility ratio. And so how have they fixed that? Well, I come from San Jose. The East Side has the most delicious food, Vietnamese food, I've ever had, including in Vietnam. I've been to Vietnam and so on and so forth. A lot of that best food that I've gotten, that I've tasted, has actually been in San Jose, California. Why is that? Again, the Vietnamese refugees that went there were from the Vietnam War. It's not as if the United States suddenly let in a bunch of Vietnamese people. There was a war. The United States got the Vietnamese people that were allied with them. You look at why the United States has a lot of the world's best people, whether Jewish, whether you name it, right? Again, World War II. The United States got Einstein in 1933. So when it comes to sort of selective immigration, the United States does go around the world, try to select PhDs and scientists and engineers and try to bring those individuals back. But when you're dealing with a mass sort of immigration policy, a numerous immigration policy, it's based on war, right? Afghanistan war, people that were allied with the United States, right? Where do they go? They come back to the United States. And that, you have GDP growth because of that. Population that comes in has to buy a new home, has to get a job, has to pay taxes, and so on and so forth. And, usually has to get a loan, right? And so on and so forth. So, you think about any real minority, Iranians, right? There are quite a few in California. Where do they come from, right? A war, Iran-Iraq war. So it's true there's a consumption-based model in the West, but it's also true that consumption-based model in the West is based on war. So when that immigrant comes over, they get a loan, right? So that war, you've got war in the banks, which have always been aligned. I remember going to Canada and going into a bank and looking at quite a few memorials. And in this bank, there was a memorial to soldiers. And I thought that's really quite strange. But if you think about it, it's not strange at all. How do banks in the West make money? How have they made money? A lot of it has been war, post-World War II. Look at JP Morgan. Look at all these banks. Look how they started out small and how they got big. That's basically it. So yeah, you have a consumption-based model, and yeah, the state-driven communist economies like China, they do look like they have capacity problems, but part of that is because they can't just go to another country, invade them, and then force, X million consumers to magically appear back in their home country.